Hello everybody watching, it's Lee Henkin here, and this video is going to be about solving cold email deliverability issues, and it's going to be particularly relevant to now 2024. So cold email, it's pretty much one of those topics you'd almost say seems to change every few months. It's a very fluid and dynamic kind of area of cold email. I mean, compared to when I started doing cold emails seriously in 2020, it has changed an absolute ton. And yeah, there's always some kind of new update or new change in the works. So basically, what I'm going to aim to do in this video is really just give you everything I know that is still relevant today in 2024, and everything that I know about that affects deliverability, and then everything that I do to try and solve deliverability issues when I see them, and just generally manage deliverability overall. Okay, so yeah, pretty important topic because of how often it changes, and also the other fact that if you're not going to hit the inbox, it's pretty much pointless doing cold email. And you know, definitely in 2024. I mean, at the time of making this video, it's June 2024. Cold email deliverability is definitely tougher and tougher, and just due to numerous reasons, which I'm going to go into. So to dive into the meat and bones of this, factors that impact deliverability. So I've really tried to distill the main factors here. There might be some I have overlooked, but I would say what I've got listed here that I'm highlighting now would be the core kind of issues or core factors. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now just pretty much run through each topic one by one and just give you kind of my insights into how to manage each of these factors effectively. So the first factor that impacts deliverability is going to be the technical stuff, so all the boring stuff. So that's really concerning, like, you know, these SPF and MX records, which should just get set up automatically with most hosting providers. But if it's not, you got to add them in manually. DKIM and DMARC, and then the server you use. Okay, so this is an area you have control over. There's a lot of areas of cold email deliverability that you have zero control over, but this is one you do have control over. So I'm not going to go into all the details regarding this technical side, because I've got other videos on this, and there's honestly that much info about setting up an infrastructure online that you can find very easily. But the short and sweet gist of it is setting up domains with inboxes, adding in DKIM, DMARC records into the DNS of each domain you use, adding in custom tracking domains, making sure SPF and MX records are added, which they should be by default in most hosting providers. Okay, so I'm not going to go into any more in that because there's that much info on it already. I want to actually really talk more about servers. Servers really is having a bigger and bigger role to play in deliverability. So I can go back like 2020 when I first started doing cold emails seriously. I mean, there was a period you could still send like 70, 80, even 100 emails a day using Google or Gmail. Today, absolutely no way. So you've basically, when it comes to servers, the most common thing to do is to use like public infrastructure servers. So that's just like Google, Outlook, Zoho, stuff like that. So Zoho was really popular at one point. I never personally used it, but from what I understand, it was really good for like volume and just scaling outreach. But then Zoho kind of caught onto it, that a lot of people, they're using their service cold email. They didn't like that. They pretty much banned it entirely. I actually, to be honest, don't know anyone in the lead gen world still using Zoho, so I'm not sure it's even possible. Just to give you an idea though of how these servers can just change stuff, and this is really one aspect that it's pretty difficult for us as lead generators or marketers to control. Then you've got Google and Outlook. So they're really in terms of the public ones, um, they're really the main operators people are still using, but they're getting stricter as well, tougher. Outlook, for example. So as of right now, making this video, it's June 2024. I do know Outlook has started banning or blocking email accounts they suspect are doing cold email. I personally haven't experienced that for any of my accounts or client accounts, but I have heard of it from other agencies doing lead gen for their clients. As I said, I haven't personally experienced that yet, though. This is what I've heard and seen from others. Google is the other one. Now, Google's gotten a lot stricter. They really started getting stricter towards the end of 2023. They pretty much put out this update that they were going to change kind of essentially their what would be considered as spamming from an email account. I don't think the changes they implemented are as strict as what they said they were going to be at the end of 2023. Reason I say that is because I would basically have all my email accounts banned and gone this year, if it was literally as strict as what they said it was. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was literally like you would only be able to get like one spam complaint or one email marked as spam per like 1,000 emails or something, which is just like absolutely impossible in cold email. You're going to achieve that. So in saying that, I don't think it's actually anywhere as strict as what they said it would be, but it is definitely stricter in 2024. So a lot's changed with those two, Google and Outlook. In my opinion, these are still both viable options, even though they have gotten stricter. You just need to be very careful with how you use them, which I'll run through. I'll run through in some of the other sections of this video. Okay, so short and sweet gist of it, they're both still viable. Just got to be careful how you use it. The other option, which has taken on a huge degree of popularity in recent times, is private SMPT servers. There's a lot of these that have kind of exploded onto the market. There's been a lot of hype around them because they promise you like incredible deliverability without the issues of Google and Outlook and all this kind of stuff. So it's obviously a very attractive proposition for a lot of lead gen agencies and just anyone looking to do cold email with any kind of volume. I have used one of these providers, a pretty big one in the market. I'm not going to name drop them here. In my experience, I've been using it since, June, maybe February or March I started using it, in addition to using Google and Outlook. In my experience, at least the one I've used, they're not as reliable as they claim to be. I've honestly kind of found deliverability to be so-so, even when following all the recommended deliverability protocols. So yeah, it kind of seems like they really attracts a lot of people just purely by the fact that it's private, but in my opinion their inboxes have a lot of issues. That's just been my experience, at least with deliverability and just general health of inboxes. Okay, so that's just my experience. Maybe they're not all like that, because obviously there's a lot of companies that offer this. That's just been my experience. So just again, based on my experiences doing this, my verdict is I would recommend and prefer to stick really to Google and Outlook, and not even bother with private SMPT servers. And I'm probably going to cancel my account with this current one in July. So yeah, that's pretty much the situation there. Google and Outlook is the way to go in my opinion, and just diversifying across those two. So if you got 20 inboxes, you'll have 10 on Google, 10 on Outlook as an example, just to diversify your risk. So that's kind of my general recommendations regarding the technical authentication and the server setup. So email account warmer. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because again, there's so much info out there and it's pretty common sense by now for even people not very familiar with cold email that you got to warm up email new inboxes before you use them in campaigns. So nothing's really changed terribly different in that regard in the last few years, honestly. So you're still going to be, when you're setting up new inboxes, you're still going to be warming them up for at least 14 days before using them in campaigns. And for a long time now, I've been using Instantly. I think it's, really great warm-up tool they have or feature as part of their service. I've got no reason to doubt it. I really like their custom tracking domain feature, so you can basically like copy and paste custom tracking domain into your DNS. It's really good. And I've just added a little screenshot here of how I set it up, so you can just have a quick look at that. And I generally follow that same kind of configuration for every inbox I add into Instantly to warm up. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that because it's pretty well known at this point. Getting marked as spam. So this is really the biggest thing that is going to kill deliverability, is getting marked as spam. So with this, because I guess overall when you're looking at cold email or just like deliverability as a specific thing, I guess you're always going to be looking at what's controllable, meaning what do I personally have control and influence over. Now, getting marked as spam, in my opinion, you don't have 100% control over, because some companies actually literally, and I've heard of this, they'll just mark any external email as spam by default. Okay, so you can't do anything about that. And also, getting marked as spam by the end user can depend on so many things. Someone could just be in a bad mood and they're just like hitting spam on everything, even if it's like a good email you send that's personalized. So yeah, you don't really have complete control over it, although to an extent you do. And the things you do have some degree of control over, one is your lead list. Okay, so again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I've got other videos on list building and stuff like that, but the main thing is principles is having a very targeted lead list, so you know who your ideal client profile is. You're building out a list of contacts, companies that matches that profile, so you're not building out like 100,000 just random B2B companies. You actually have some kind of logical thought and intelligence behind that list building process. Verified email addresses, very, very important. So you want to be making sure you double verify email addresses. Again, this is going to depend on the tool you use. Some tools will only send you, will already double verify an email address, some don't. So if you're going to have to use a third party tool, I use NeverBounce to do this. So I double verify the email addresses that way. And that you do that because it reduces your bounce rate. Bounce rate has an impact on deliverability. If you get too many bounces, that can cause your emails to ruin your inbox, basically. So that's the reason why you want to make sure you have as less or lower bounce rate as possible. And the more targeted and accurate your lead list is, the more likely that your message will match that lead list. Therefore, the user is less likely to mark your email as spam, because it will still be relevant even if they're not interested. Okay, relevant to them, basically, they just don't have that problem you reached out about. Second thing, which has changed a little bit in the last couple of years, is sequence length. So back in the day, I was kind of by default doing 4 or 5 step sequences. Sometimes I even did more. Today, in 2024, in the vast majority of cases, I am only doing 3-step sequences. The only exception I'd have to that is if I'm working with a company where they have a very small a total addressable market size, or they have a deal size where a sale to them is worth like $100,000 or $500,000. Then you can kind of drag sequences out a bit more and have a bit of a different approach. But in my opinion, for the majority of B2B companies in general, you don't need more than 3 steps in a sequence for that reason. And the other reason is because the more emails you send in a sequence, the reality is, no matter how relevant you make it, or how well you build your lead list, the more steps you send, the more likely it is someone is going to hit that spam button and mark it as spam. So that's just the reality of it. No getting around that. So that's why in the vast majority of cases, you want to keep your emails to 3 steps. Email sending volume, so this is one you can control. So my kind of default in the majority of cases is sending 30 to 40 emails per day, not including warm-ups, okay? Sometimes I will push to 50, but I very rarely do that, honestly. I just find it just eventually creates problems. So yeah, I'm generally sticking to 30, 40 emails a day without warm-ups included in that, okay? But the lower you can keep it, the better, honestly. Like 30 a day is going to be the best, so you just need to create more inboxes, basically, to scale that volume horizontally. Okay, so that's what I recommend. Email message formatting. So this also has a role. So this really concerns stuff like links, images, GIFs. So this has honestly been around for years. This hasn't changed. Like, this has always been the case with cold email in my experience doing this in the last few years. You know, if you put images, GIFs, too many links, you're more likely to get, like, the servers are more likely to perceive your email as spammy. So you just really want to limit that. So I don't recommend, like, you know, having a fancy email signature like some people recommend, where it's like a headshot or a company logo with like friggin' 3 different hyperlinks, like a link to your website, your Instagram, LinkedIn, all this stuff. If you're gonna put an email signature in, which yeah you do need to have, just keep it boring and plain looking, and just put one link, which is to your company website or like a VSL or something like that. And if you don't have a website or VSL, at least to some asset you got online that showcases some proof and credibility and that you're actually a real person and business. So the messaging itself, though, the copywriting, also keep it plain, boring. You don't need heaps of italics, bolded text, underlines, coloured, highlighted text, bold. You know, boring, plain is what you want, and that's it. So yeah, and then there are also instances of the kind of words you use. I mean, that's a really tough one though, and I find it doesn't have a huge impact. So I mean, there is some like kind of words that can be perceived that would make an email spammy. You can kind of do searches on Google for stuff like that. But I mean, I kind of don't worry about that hugely. In my opinion, it's a very, very small part of the whole deliverability process. So that's the email message formatting aspect. The last thing you want to do here is, well, really the best way to manage and check cold email deliverability. It's honestly pretty difficult in a lot of ways, but the best way I've found is inbox placement tests. This is actually something I started doing recently. I've used different providers just to test them out. I've also looked at things like domain reputation scores, health scores of email accounts in Instantly. While I do think these have their place, in my opinion, at least from my experience, I found inbox placement tests to be the most reliable way to get some kind of indicator of deliverability, basically, of whether or not your emails are hitting the inbox, basically, which is obviously what deliverability is all about. So like I said, I've used different tools to do this. I've experimented with different ones. What I've landed upon at the time of recording this video is a tool called mailreach.co. Pretty simple to do an inbox placement test. Like, yeah, as I've said, written here, you just follow the instructions. It's very simple. But you really want to make sure that when doing it, that you paste the message you're using in your cold emails into the email you want to test for the inbox placement, because that's going to be like the most realistic that way, not just put in some random jargon or anything like that. And I'll just show you quickly how that looks in a sec too, but that's just a really important tip there to give. It'll give you a more accurate indicator. And then you really want to, one thing I've started doing is just do every month. So doing deliverability or inbox placement tests. So, if you've got 5 clients, 15, 20 clients, whatever you got, or you're just doing this yourself for your own company, set aside some time each month to go through each account and actually do inbox placement tests, like once a month, for example. Is the best way to spot deliverability issues, and in my opinion, this is the best way to spot them, rather than relying on like health scores of email accounts instantly, what domain reputation scores you got. Yeah, I've really just found inbox placement tests are the best way to manage this. So it's really the number one thing I would recommend you do to manage deliverability once you've done all the technical stuff, the warming up. Once all that's done, inbox placement tests are the way to do it. So as I mentioned, I'll just quickly show you mail reach. So yeah, you can see here they got this email warmer, spam checker. So that I'm using Instantly's warm up, just so you're aware of that. I don't use this email warmer here. I just use mail reach for spam checking. So yeah, you pretty much just follow these instructions. So you copy and paste your cold email message into the email, copy and paste this text here wherever you want to copy it, and then in the to, you just copy and paste all of this, paste that into the to, and then basically it'll ask you when it sends it, it'll ask you whether you want to test for all inboxes, professional inboxes, or personal inboxes. Because in cold email you're contacting business email addresses, you want to tick professional inboxes. So just really important you select professional inboxes for that. So that's pretty much how you do it. Very simple. You can see some tests here I've done, and you can see this one for a client, 0 out of 10. It's absolutely dismal, as you can see. And that's how I knew that this inbox was basically no good anymore, and I needed to fix it. And then if you click on it, that's like the email I sent. And then if you come up here to content, it'll tell you some things you can change, set up. So it'll have all this kind of stuff here. So this particular inbox is completely trash, and I need to create a new one. Here's another one here that I did recently. This one got 5 out of 10, which is okay, 50%, but still not very good. As you can see, it's all professional Google, but all the Outlook ones landed in the inbox. And again, you can just come up. So you really want to be getting like 10 out of 10 or like 8, 9 out of 10 in my opinion. So as you can see, I've got some here that have got 10 out of 10. So these all landed in the inbox. So so pretty straightforward to do really. But as I mentioned, make doing this a part of your ongoing process once a month, and you pretty much can't go wrong. So that's pretty much it. So it's been a bit of a longish video, but cold email deliverability 2024 is changing a lot, has changed a lot. It's getting tougher. So hopefully this will at least give you a bit of a game plan and a bit of confidence in how to manage and handle cold email deliverability moving forward for the rest of 2024, and hopefully it doesn't change too radically into 2025, but you never know with these things. So that's basically it. Hope you got some value out of this video. If you like it, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it. If you got any questions about deliverability, do let me know. I know I've covered a lot of stuff, and I'll get back to you in the comments. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.